Hello, welcome to another Purple Insider Extra. Matthew Coller here, along with Sam Ekstrom. A reminder, check out the entire conversation at the Purple Insider podcast, or go check out our written work at purpleinsider.substack.com. Sam, a bunch of Vikings have left, as seems to be happening in recent off seasons. Riley Reef, Anthony Harris, they're finding new jobs. Afadi Adenabo, Kyle Rudolph. Which Viking who left Minnesota this offseason will have the most success in their new home?
Can I say a name that you didn't mention? Can I say Mike Boone? Is that
Oh,
okay?
Mike Boone, that's a great
Because
pick. Denver.
Denver gets him for 2 years, less than $4 million, and that 2 years is important because that tells me that they're interested in more than just a training camp experiment. They have been known to rotate their running backs, whether it was Royce Freeman and Philip Lindsay or Melvin Gordon and Philip Lindsay. They like the dual running back system. I think Mike Boone is going to be perfect. He's going to make them so happy, and he's going to be so much better utilized in Denver than he was in Minnesota, because Minnesota relied on Dalvin Cook, and I love Alexander Madison, but they gave him the job basically with like 2 OTA practices under his belt, and they said you're a number two, Alexander. And Mike Boone just didn't get a lot of opportunities. He is electrifying. Like in preseason games, he showed us what he could do. Got some glimpses in the regular season where I thought he was really productive, like a 5.5 yard per carry guy. I think Mike Boone would be like sneaky fantasy option for fantasy fans for the Denver Broncos.
And also, George Payton is now the general
Mm-hmm.
manager of the Denver Broncos. He was the assistant GM here. So, George Payton must have a good sense for what Mike Boone can do for their offense. And you're right that I thought he was underutilized because he had also played wide receiver before. And he was the type of guy we talked about. Could they line him up in the slot? Could they run reverses with him? Because he has this exciting explosiveness. And we just never saw that come to fruition in Minnesota. That's a great low key pick. I was going to go with bang for buck and Afadi Adenabo with the New York Giants, where he might get a legitimate opportunity to be a rotational rusher there, which I think was his best role here. He had 7 sacks in 2019 as a guy who sometimes played on the outside edge and sometimes was lined up over the guard. And if they use him in that way as a situational rusher for just $2.5 million, I think that they could get a lot of bang for buck for that. And I also wonder, Sam, if the reason Afadi Adenabo is not still a Minnesota Viking is that the Vikings expected to sign a pass rusher on day one. And when all those pass rushers went off the board, they moved on to get Dalvin Tomlinson. But the plan was to replace Afadi Adenabo with someone else and use the money in the cap space that he opened up to get a different free agent. So now they're left without Adenabo, who last year was not a superstar by any means, but was their best defensive lineman. And Pro Football Focus credited him with 42 pressures, which was about the same as Yannick Ngakoue got for the entire season. So considering that the Giants barely paid anything to bring Adenabo in, I think he could bring a lot to them. But how do you feel about Riley Reef and Anthony Harris in the contracts they signed? Very, very reasonable money for 1-year deals.
Extremely. 7.5 million for Riley Reef. That's, I think if I were envisioning what a restructure would have meant for Riley Reef, I would have pictured about that. Like knock the cap hit down to about $7.5 million and have him play for the Vikings and give him an extra year. For Anthony Harris, considering he was set to make probably 8 figures per year on a multi-year deal last year, to get him 1 year, $5 million, that's incredible. And it sounds like there might have been some talks about trying to bring him back. And then a lot of that money went to Patrick Peterson. So Harris moves on. Reef moves on. Both, I think. And it feels like last year a little bit, Caller, because last year we were saying, man, couldn't they have retained Mackenzie Alexander? Couldn't they have retained Xavier Rhodes at those costs? And sometimes I think when players don't get what they want or they don't feel valued by the team, maybe in negotiations, they'd rather take the same money elsewhere and get a fresh start. And that might be what's happening here. The last safety that went to Philadelphia, Andrew Sendejo, didn't have a lot of success. We'll see what happens with Anthony Harris, who I think probably still has a little bit in the tank. And again, he's going to be playing with kind of a damaged cornerback group. And I don't know how well that's going to go for him after seeing what happened in Minnesota. But I do wish Anthony the best of luck. I know I shouldn't do that as a journalist, but I like Anthony, and I think he's been fun to cover. So Riley Reef, I still don't know like what he sounds like. He didn't really talk to us, but best of luck to him as well.
Well, Anthony Harris was a good story. Someone who was undrafted and turned out to be a very good starter for a couple years for the Vikings. And I think that a lot of people will look at Anthony Harris's exit and say, well, that's okay because he didn't have a great year last year. But my question is, well, what's the answer? We still don't really know. Is it going to be addressed in the draft? Is it going to be addressed in free agency? Or is there going to be some sort of competition at that position between several players? That's a lot less of a sure thing as Anthony Harris would have been. And with Riley Reef, he gets to play with an exciting young quarterback in Joe Burrow, and he's moving to right tackle, which I think makes it pretty clear who Cincinnati wants to draft as a left tackle in the first round. So this has been another Purple Insider Extra. Again, the longer conversations are down in the description, the Purple Insider podcast. Make sure you check it out, and purpleinsider.substack.com. We'll catch you next time.